Robert Penfold, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it. There from Pretoria this morning. Ed Husic, your reflections on this great man of the 20th century of history.
I think when people put it to a personal level, we have our respective individual challenges, and we sometimes wonder, can we actually overcome? You've got to wonder what Nelson Mandela woke up to every single day of those 27 years or so. That he was in a Labor camp. He was probably thinking at that point his best years were just ebbing away, and that he wouldn't be able to make a life for himself. He came out, he inspired not only his country but the rest of the world, and what we're seeing now is basically an honouring of not only that sacrifice but also knowing that this is a person who did it with great humility and with a clear vision about what he thought in terms of a unified South Africa, not one that was divided, but bringing everyone together and without malice. I think it's just a story that will inspire for generations.
Yeah, well, indeed. Let's bring our attention back now to our debate at home, of course dominated this week by the Holden issue. It was a forceful contribution from Joe Hockey yesterday. It looks like the government's taunting Holden. The Fin Review describes it as Joe Hockey daring them to leave.
Look, we just want some clarity for the workers of Holden and for people who are in the car industry. But let's be frank here, Kieran. It's Labor's policies that have put a stake through the heart of the Australian car industry. It started with the carbon tax. That increases the cost of a domestically made car by up to $400.
That's wrong.
Then you had policy on the run, $1.8 billion tax hit through the FBT changes to the car industry, which your own Jay Weatherill, the Labor Premier in South Australia, said was a bad decision. You've had cash for clunkers, you've had the green car scheme, you've had promises, over $1 billion of promises that Labor made to the car industry.
Has cash for clunkers hurt the automotive industry? I thought it would help them when you get rid of old companies.
They just do not have a policy for the car industry.
But what they're pointing to now is $500 million less that this government in power today is not providing that Labor was going to provide.
$1 billion of taxpayers' money through the Automotive Transformation Scheme is a lot of money.
$500 million less than what Labor was going to provide.
That's up to 2015. Well, we want the car industry to survive, and $1 billion is a lot of taxpayers' money. But as I've said previously, the Australian taxpayer, Kieran, is not an ATM for the car industry. We want it to become more efficient and more effective, and one way you'll do that is by getting rid of the carbon tax, which is a slug. It's a slug to the car industry.
But isn't it all too late to be talking about that?
Why?
Jay Weatherill said
passed the bill through the House.
I put those comments about the ATM to Jay Weatherill this week. He said it was an insult to blue-collar workers.
Absolutely it is.
Well, of course he'd say that because he's a Labor Premier. Right, and Jay Weatherill was very critical of the Labor Party's own decision on the FBT decision that you made on the run lead up to the last election. You see, we have to get the car industry to survive on its own 2 feet. $1 billion of taxpayers' funds through the Automotive Transformation Scheme is a lot of money, and that's up to 2015.
Okay, let's go to Ed now, because many believe these auto companies have held the governments to ransom for years, and that the gig had to end at some point.
Well, obviously the focus has been on the future of the industry and what can be done, and to use taxpayers' funds wisely. And I mean, from the perspective of, as has been discussed, it'll cost more to actually repair the damage than what we're looking to actually do now, which is to see a vibrant auto industry remain. And internationally,
even in the longer term.
Well, internationally, let's put this in a context in terms of co-investment by government. US, I think it's equivalent to $264 per person. In Germany, it's 90, and it's about 18 here. But my issue, Kieran, is this is a government that said Australia would be open for business, and they've made some critical decisions that have signalled otherwise. I mean, they have had this sort of stunning indifference in terms of GrainCorp. When someone wanted to invest, they blocked it. You saw 30% of the value of shares wiped, CEO gone, silos looking at closing. And now they're actually daring a company where the employment impact could be about 50,000 people, mums and dads who lose their pay packet, and the other side of politics is saying, go, we don't care. And this is from a mob who said they're open for business. And the longer term picture is pretty, and just very quickly, is concerning. National incomes across the world declining, monetary policy not having the impact that it once did, governments don't have the money to spend, We have investment in the mining sector here falling in the face of a high dollar as well.
But isn't this about
Where do we
focusing
get,
on
hang on
your
a second,
strengths?
But just
Isn't
if
this
we
about
lose
trying
the
to
car industry, just hang on a second. If we lose this industry, where do we get the jobs in that broader context I just
Well, isn't
pointed out?
this about looking to industries that will be viable and on their own 2 feet, as Josh put it?
How can they be viable if the other side of politics is cutting half a billion?
Why should there be
half a
government
billion
taxpayer support for every industry?
Because in this
Because not every industry gets it.
In this industry, when you look globally, governments actively co-invest. And our co-investment is modest, and the outcome of that is that there are 50,000 or so people in Australia who benefit from jobs and get to take a pay packet to ensure their families survive.
Okay,
Kieran,
just quickly.
there's a fundamental question here. How do we make the sector more productive, more efficient, more cost-effective? And the way we're going to do that is getting rid of the carbon tax. I mean, don't forget Julia Gillard in the lead-up to the last election. She went out to Ford and she said, here's $34 million to create an additional 300 jobs. Well, within 8 months, there were 300 jobs that were lost by Ford down at Geelong.
Okay.
So you just committing money is not the answer here. Ed.
Let's move on. I want to talk about the childcare pay issue. The government says it was inequitable, what you were doing in terms of not providing pay rises for childcare workers across the board. Some would get it if they were members of unions, others would miss out.
No, that's it. Look,
That's what the government's saying this morning.
Look, I mean, the thing is, you cannot, in terms of the Early Years Quality Fund, I mean, you also have laws that prevent discrimination on the basis of union and non-union. So that's just a furphy. I mean, what you need to focus on is the fact that back 5 December, Tony Abbott, the Prime Minister, said he would honour the existing contracts in terms of childcare, and now what they're trying to do is do a backflip. And on top of that, they're capping indexation in terms of the childcare rebate, which will chew into the affordability of childcare for average families. And what really gets me going is they've got ministers with disputed travel bills that won't pay back their bills, but they're chasing money from the pay packets of childcare workers. And it is absolutely obscene.
Childcare workers are among the lowest paid in the community. The government was copping a fair bit of flack on this last night on social media. Are you comfortable with this move?
Well, I'm afraid to say Ed and his party is ignoring the facts here. Let's put the facts on the table, because there is a whiff of scandal here in relation to this program. Firstly, there was $300 million of money that was provided to these early year educators. Now, it was exhausted within 13 hours. And the traditional procurement guidelines for these sort of grants is for it to be open for 4 weeks. It was exhausted in 13 hours, and more than 70% of the long day educators do not get $1 under this. Secondly, the unions were provided with early briefings about this proposal before there was formal processes were opened. There's a question to be asked about that. The head of United Voice has given evidence that he used this program to sign up members. He was telling people that unless they signed up to the union, they wouldn't be getting. Well, you just said it wasn't true that they wouldn't.
No, shock horror. This is what he said. Should say, if we deliver for you in the workplace, we'd like you to join us. They
were saying that you had to sign up in order to get money. And then thirdly, why was 16 contracts signed by Kate Ellis on September the 6th, the day before the election, when the government was in caretaker mode? So there really is a whiff of scandal here. Susan Ley is absolutely right to release this independent PricewaterhouseCoopers report, which has found that the government's program was flawed and inequitable.
All right, let's get Ed's response.
Well, I was just going to say, you know what, I'm just going to tackle head on this whole notion in terms of the union. Unions are there to actually fight for better conditions, fight for better pay. And in the sector itself, it was losing people and not being able to attract people because of the level of pay. And so if you want to get quality labour, quality workers in the sector, you need to do something about it. And so what we were saying is we'll help the sector to do that, to retain skills and attract skills, and do it. And if unions have fought for that, to try and improve and better the conditions of people in the workplace, yeah, that's going to happen, and they're going to go out and recruit. But the bottom line is this: you have on some contracts the government saying unless it's been signed, we won't honour it. And then when they are signed, they won't honour it. So what's clear is they don't honour their word, and people pay for it.
In terms of taking the pay rises, regardless of how the decision making was made.
You can't say regardless
Well,
of that.
no, but
because it's clearly
you
flawed.
can if some childcare workers on $45,000 a year get a pay rise.
Yeah.
I think that they don't really care about how that comes about. If they've got it, now you're taking it away. That's a big call.
Well, it's been a completely flawed and inequitable fund. As I said, more than 70% of long day educators do not get a dollar under this scheme. And the scheme was open for 13 hours. It's clear there was some preferential treatment given. There was
Demand exhausted supply.
Right. And there were contracts that were signed on the edge on the day before the election, and we've had an independent review. And what we've said, we want to put money into professional development of long day educators, but when it comes to this sector, Labor has really broken a huge amount of promises. I mean, long day childcare has gone up by 44% on average on the 6 years on Labor's watch. They promised over 220 childcare centres were never delivered.
Okay.
I mean, it's a pretty appalling record.
Gentlemen, this is our last show of the year. I want to thank you both
It's been great.
for your contributions and on behalf of our viewers.
We work hard, we train hard, we try to deliver.
Good to be with you, Ed.
Happy
Thanks,
holidays,
Kieran.
gentlemen.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.
Season's greetings.
Season's greetings indeed. A quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.